Alright everybody, it's Gano here. I'm gonna do a second WWE vs TNA rant because the first one I didn't really get at all the things I wanted to say. Now I'm just gonna go over some of the bad points between both the WWE and the TNA. Okay, first bad match in the last year or two. The most recent one at Judgment Day, John Cena versus the Great Khali. And that's a mismatch in my opinion. I mean, if you've seen the match, the Great Khali completely dominated John Cena the whole time. And I guess everybody knew John Cena was gonna win because he always wins. He doesn't lose, and the fans want him to lose because they're tired of seeing him as champion. But maybe if Cena had to win the match, the least he could have done is FU Khali. And that would have been amazing. A slight tinge of amazement for some of the fans to see see him FU Khali. What does he do? He puts him in the STFU. And you've seen Khali on TV. He wouldn't tap out to such a bullshit move as that, but he did. And Cena's just, it doesn't make sense because Cena's not a submission person. And another one was Bobby Lashley versus Umaga at WrestleMania 23 with the hair match between Vince McMahon and Donald Trump. Overall, the presentation of the match just didn't go so well, even with Stone Cold there as the guest referee. And next, again, Bobby Lashley versus Vince McMahon, Shane McMahon, and Umaga for the ECW Championship in the last two pay-per-views. And just the fact that Vince McMahon came out of both the ECW champion knows that the WWE is running out of ideas. Plus, they're turning ECW into a shithole by making Vince McMahon the ECW champion. It doesn't work out. Now, one of the biggest disappointments that I've seen in the last year, you remember the Punjabi prison match between The Undertaker and the Great Khali? Yep. First of all, Daivari and the Great Khali built that match up to such an amazing hype, saying that it's one of the most dangerous matches that the WWE has ever done. I mean, a steel cage within a bamboo steel cage within a bigger bamboo steel cage, and weapons on the outside. I mean, they were building it to be a great match, or a match that nobody's ever seen. Then comes the pay-per-view. I mean, granted, the Great Khali had a hidden injury there, but to put the Big Show in instead of the Great Khali, you just knocked a few entertainment points off that match right there, Teddy Long. And in the match itself, all the weapons that were on the outside of the outside cage, I don't really think they used any of them. Maybe one or two. And for a match that was supposed to be that violent, I expected the Undertaker or the Big Show to open up and start bleeding everywhere. I don't think they really came out with a scratch. And the way that the Undertaker won, I think the Big Show threw him against the cage ring and the cage broke and Undertaker fell out, and the first person who leaves the cage is the winner. All this while the Great Khali and Daivari were climbing up the other side of the cage to interfere. I don't know whether that was planned or not, but that was just the crappiest ending to the crappiest match. So, yep, that's the biggest disappointment. I don't really have to mention Rosie O'Donnell versus Donald Trump. That match was just complete and utter bullcrap. And the fans didn't like it. The announcers tried to act like, oh my god, it's Rosie O'Donnell! Wow, she's gonna wrestle! Oh my god, Donald Trump! Wow, who's gonna win? Shut the fuck up. The fans didn't like it. And if you see the video on YouTube, you'll notice that the fans start chanting TNA. And that's gotta piss off Vince McMahon, because he's the one that brought the match up. And he's the one that's bringing WWE down. So, unless you followed my last advice and bring the WWE back up to the Attitude Era, the WWE is dead. I'm gonna say it again, WWE is gonna die. And all you hardcore WWE fans, you little 12-year-olds that don't know what wrestling is all about, you're gonna have nothing to go to, and you're not gonna watch TNA. But everybody else will, all the hardcore fans. Now, TNA has its own bad matches. Heard of LAX versus Team 3D in the electric steel cage match? When one of the members of LAX was thrown against the cage, you expect him to get electrocuted or shocked, and apparently nothing happened. And the crowd didn't like it. I don't really think they liked the match at all. I'm glad 3D won the tag team titles there, but the match itself was a disappointment. There was Christy Hemme versus the big sweaty guy. Maybe if this was WWE, I'd expect that kind of crap from her, but this is TNA, and TNA's better, and you can't just throw something like that together. If Vince Russo was smart, because he's involved with the Christy Hemme storyline, he would have put her in get her in the middle of the feud between Gail Kim and Miss Jackie, which was going on at that time. And another thing about Vince Russo, I've heard that he was the reason for WCW, for the folding of the WCW. But and then I've heard that it's not entirely Vince Russo's fault. It's not because of the matches he's put in. The thing about it, if you've seen Bill and Doug's videos, which is RVD Tito for life, and saying that Vince Russo isn't the problem, they still don't admit the fact that he's still a problem. The examples that he gave, the Christy Hemme storyline, VKM storyline, and Ron Killings, they admitted that they were all bad. So Vince Russo still equals bad in my book. And so that's all for him. Now, Samoa Joe versus AJ Styles. Their matches aren't that bad, but this is probably like the 50th time that they faced each other. And come on, TNA, do something different. Don't do the same match over and over and over and over again. Other things that I find wrong with the WWE, and to a much lesser extent TNA, is that they're all gimmick happy. Everybody in those promotions have a gimmick. Look at Wrestling Society X. It wasn't wrestling. It was all gimmicks. Disco people, Vampiro. Yeah. They weren't wrestling, so I'm glad that shithole went away. But look at the WWE and all the gimmicks that the wrestlers have. King Booker. Enough said. Because I would have preferred him to stay as Booker T, but instead he probably chose to be King Booker so that he'd win the World Heavyweight title. Because I've heard a lot of stories of why Booker T chose to be known as King Booker, because otherwise he'd never be a World Heavyweight Champion. Finley and Hornswoggle, the Leprechaun, the Boogeyman, Deuce and Domino, Crime Time, Highlanders, they're all gimmicks, and they're all making fun of some stereotypical person. TNA, not so much, but they have a few, if you'd like to call them gimmicks. VKM is their response to D-Generation X, because the members, BG and Kip James, they were members of DX back in the Attitude Era. And LAX. Well, you can figure that out for yourself. Latin American Exchange. Before I go, a little update. I don't know how long this has been in place, but The WWE has banned wrestlers from using the 450 splash and the shooting star press, which is really upsetting for people like Paul London and, if he's still in WWE, Billy Kidman. So, if other than Jeff Hardy doing the Swanton and the Whisper in the Wind, if you want to see high-flying, high risk maneuvers from the top rope or top of a steel cage, you're not gonna get that in WWE anymore. If you want that, then watch TNA. So that's it. I'm out of here.